That football chairman Paul Williams joins us on the line now. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us today. We obviously had a good chat with Jerry just prior to the news there. But obviously from a boardroom level, I mean, just talk us through what's happened this week. The season's obviously been declared null and void. I understand that's still got to go to FA ratification. But in terms of the vote, just talk us through what's happened there.
Well, effectively, we were just pleased that the decision was finally made, and it's dragged on for quite a while. There were several resolutions, but the principal one to start with was for clubs to decide whether or not they wanted the divisions to make their own mind up about their season. So the National League looking after itself and the North and South voting together as one group. And that was passed. I think most of the National League clubs obviously decided that they didn't really want to interfere with other clubs' decision-making. And so once that was clear, then it was just a case of each division making their own mind up. And the National Division voted in favour of continuing, whereas North and South combined voted in favour of declaring null and void and ending.
Bath City have obviously made their position on all this quite clear right from the start. But I guess you were one of the guys, one of the clubs I should say, who voted to discontinue. Just talk us through some of the issues around that and how, as a club, you reached that decision to take that decision. If you see what I mean.
Well, the principal issue was around finance. I mean, we were in a situation where the money from the National Lottery that the government managed to obtain for October, November, December ran out. Unfortunately, we weren't privy to all the conversations and discussions that were going on, but it seems that there was a misunderstanding of what was suggested and what wasn't suggested back in the autumn. So we got to January and suddenly told, well, it's going to be primarily loans if you want to take them from the Sport England under the Winter Survival Fund, or if you are in a situation where you wouldn't be able to repay those loans, they would consider giving a grant. Now, the unfortunate thing from my perspective is that the document was dated the 16th of December, and we were presented with it until the middle of January.
Right.
By which time, we'd already paid. We pay our wages 4 weekly, so we'd already paid payroll in the middle of January. We were faced with paying payroll again in the middle of February, and with no income, or very limited income, we decided that we wouldn't be able to continue past that point because we would effectively be trying to do something with no money. And it didn't seem sensible, and we don't want to borrow more money. As you're probably aware, the club's got sufficient debt around it already, which we're trying to clear. We don't want to add to that for the sake of continuing one season and putting the club in further peril for longer.
I'm aware that obviously, this whole situation with COVID, etc. I mean, it's a completely unique situation for a league like the National League to find itself in. Is it fair to say? And I'm not sort of trying to put you in a position here, but is it fair to say this? You guys feel this could have been handled better at a league level? I'm talking about not at a club level. I'm talking sort of a league administration level. Yeah,
I mean, I think basically the clubs were left in the dark for too long. The league must have been, we think the league must have been aware, and we don't know because they're not telling us, that there was an issue in December. Now, if clubs had been faced with that and asked to look at it then, it may have changed the picture completely, because by then clubs would have played a lot fewer games. The season would have been 2 months old. We'd have already played FA Cup and FA Trophy matches, so I don't know exactly how many games we played by then, but probably would have been in single figures, or possibly just in the 10s or 11 matches, and that might have put a bit different outlook on what every club will want to do for the season. But the difficulty is every club in the National League is different. We're all structured differently, we're all financed differently, and so there's never a one case fits all, unfortunately. And I think there are some clubs who are trying to say, well, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, but they're ignoring the issues that may be facing other organisations.
I guess that, in many ways what's happened here has kind of highlighted that difference between clubs in many ways, hasn't it? And do you think there needs to be a more consensus-based approach going forward, and it needs to be something that's of a benefit for the collective? I know everybody obviously has their own interests, and that's completely understandable, but I guess looking at it from the outside here, it would be sort of pretty apparent that the league hasn't really acted as one when perhaps it needed to in a situation like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I wouldn't want to be in the situation of having to make these decisions, but it seems to me that football doesn't change very quickly, and there are lots of issues around the way in which football is structured that aren't correct. I mean, silly little situations, like one of my colleagues is always on about the fact the FA Trophy, you get to a point where the FA Trophy, suddenly the FA might send you halfway across the country to play a tie, in normal times where there might be a very small crowd. In COVID times, obviously no crowd at all. And you think, well, what's the point of that? The only benefit is the prize money and getting through to the next round, because quite clearly the only people who benefit are the transport companies who transport you halfway across the country to play a game. And that's a little thing that the FA needs to sort out at some point in the future. But equally, every league has issues, and sometimes I think you need a bit more forward thinking as to how you structure things. And the National League in this particular season, we're the member clubs. Ultimately, the league is there to serve us. But I think there have been, over the last year or two, situations and perhaps individuals who perhaps felt the league was their fiefdom and they tell us what we have to do, not really the other way around.
Yeah, and I guess, one thing, we were just talking about this with Jerry like a little while back, but I guess one of the things with that is, in many ways, now you've kind of got that opportunity. I mean, there is a bit of breathing space between now and whenever you start next season, and obviously that's still to be sorted out and depends on what things happen. But in theory, there is a window of opportunity there to try and sort some of these issues out, isn't there?
Well, there is, but obviously someone's got to come forward and be willing to head it up and put the plans in place. I think you're right. I mean, there is a window of opportunity. There's more time, because there didn't really be everything in life, is it? It rolls on. Whether you finish one season, you have a month off pre-season, and suddenly you're into preparing for the next one. And so there isn't really time to sit back and think. Now we potentially have got our time to sit back and think and say, can we do it differently?
I mean, it was lovely speaking to sort of Jerry a little while back there. I mean, he was actually quite excited about the work he's got to do over the next few months, and the things he's got to do to get in place before whenever you restart. Tell us a bit about the board's work now and the work you guys have got to do, because obviously it's not going to stop for you just because there's no football, is it?
No, it never does. And first and foremost, we've got to make sure that the club is secure, which I think it is. We've got to build again on the redevelopment proposals and get to restructure the club a little bit. But equally, we are a football club, and the business is to carry on. And hopefully, next season starts in August, or pre-season probably be early July, if not late June. And we've got to be ready and structured to do that. And obviously, Jerry's role is to make sure that he recruits and we have a squad together, and then we as the club have to make sure we can support him and the other employees with that.
Has the aim got to be, I mean, and this goes beyond Bath City and beyond the border, has the aim got to be to start this new season, whenever that is, hopefully with supporters in the ground and starting again as you'd hope to start a league season, rather than having to start it, without supporters? Yeah,
that would be the aim. I mean, obviously everyone wants to see supporters back in football grounds, and every supporter wants to be back in football grounds. What we don't know is exactly how that might work. I mean, some people might say, well, I've done without it for a year. Do I want to go back and watch it? That's an unknown. We don't know what the commercial environment's going to be like out there, how difficult it will be, how easy it will be to get sponsors and sponsorship. So it may be like starting again. And that could be potentially an issue. But all we've got to do is make sure that we're ready to welcome people back in. We'd love to see them. I mean, they've been so supportive by not being there anyway, that we're just pleased as a club that we have got such a loyal fan base.
Taking all that into account, do you think the club, and I'm just taking the club by itself, is in a good position, or a healthy position is probably better than good position, because obviously you're not playing football at the moment, and that's the primary purpose of it. But do you think the club's in a healthy or healthier position to be able to come out the other side of this and then progress on into the future?
I think we're in as good a position as we could be, given all the problems that have happened. I mean, again, every club is different, but looking at figures the other day, I know that our income from use of the stadium is down by about £50,000 this year. Now, that you can't just replace overnight. So hopefully we've got to work on the basis that come August, or like the end of the summer or early autumn, we are back to some sort of normality, and activities can recommence as they did. We won't know until it happens, but I think all the signs are that we're moving in the right direction. the government seems to be sensible about not committing themselves to trying to get everything back at once, because I think that might be a silly mistake if they did. But hopefully the desire will be there, and we will be there, because we are, the whole point of stopping this season was to make sure that we didn't put ourselves in peril and not be in a situation where we couldn't do things and couldn't pay our bills. And we've come through that at this moment in time. The season ending has meant we're not going to be spending as much money as we would have to if we carried on playing, and that's got to be putting us in a better position than we would have been otherwise. I just don't know what some of the national clubs are going to do, who are going to be forced to borrow money to play out a season that they may get no benefit from. Yeah,
and I guess your role as football chairman, one of your primary roles is obviously you work very closely with Jerry all the time anyway. I guess from his point of view, the thing he wants to hear from you as and when you can do it is how he's going to and what he's going to have in place to be able to put together a squad that he wants to compete when you do restart again.
Yes. And it would normally be about this time of the year when we start looking at budgets for next year. And we'll have to do that anyway. The league always requires us to present the budget to them by the AGM, which is early June. I don't think that will change this year. We'll probably have to put a budget to them. We might have to be a bit more circumspect and conservative on that budget. But we'll have to produce a budget, and you can't not sign players if you want to play football.
Yeah. So, there's going to be a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes, I guess, in terms of in terms of what you're going to be able to help Jerry with and all that going forward, especially over the next 2 or 3 months, I guess.
Well, unfortunately, with running a football club, that's always the case, because no matter what you might budget for, you don't know. I mean, for instance, the fixture list comes out in July. If when the fixture list comes out, you're given the potentially the best crowds or teams that might have the best crowd on Tuesday nights, suddenly you're thinking, might have gone completely the wrong way around. And if you don't get your local derby on Boxing Day and New Year's Day, then your income's not going to be as high as you might hope for. So that's an imponderable. You don't know what the weather's going to do to you over the winter. You lose games and then play them Tuesday nights in February. You're not going to get the same as you would have done a December Saturday. And all those things are problematic. So the difficulty is, and what you want as a football club to try and get non-football revenue, is that gives you some certainty, a sort of underlining of where you are. And that's why in the last couple of years we've tried to boost the amount of income we generate from non-football from the stadium.
I mentioned to Jerry earlier on, we had a few messages for you, a lot of goodwill to both himself and yourself, with the difficult job you've been faced with over the last few months, and indeed will be over the next few months. But a message to the club supporters, because I guess when we get back to restarting, as it were, or starting again, they're going to be more important than ever for you, aren't they?
Oh, they are. The lifeblood of any football club anyway, and we are fortunate in having very dedicated and long-serving and generous supporters. And I just want to see them back in the ground and enjoying watching football again.
Well said, Paul. Thank you so much, as always, for your time and your insight into that. And we look forward. We can speak to you again soon. Hopefully, a bit more about football rather than the off-field matters.
Okay.
Excellent, Paul. Paul Williams. Thank you very much there.